I'm Tina Joy, the yoga nutritionist, founder of Sunsa Yoga, Personal Yoga and Stretch in NYC. So this was something I've been contemplating on speaking on over the past year, and it's something that I've come to terms with, especially over the last week. And it's something that I really want to talk to you all about as far as my inconsistency on the channel. Um, while you had seen me, start off really strong in an effort to hit 1K in 2023 into 2024. And then I slowly started to, step back for a number of reasons, and I want to speak to you all about those reasons in this video. And we will be having our 4 vinyasa yoga practices for the week. It will be today and then through Saturday. I didn't do it yesterday because I was really overwhelmed within my personal life, and it's been a journey to say the least. So get your tea or coffee. I usually wake up around 4, 4:30, but today it's just before 3 in New York. So if you're here with me or if you're joining in an hour or so, let's get into it. Okay, maybe I'll get my coffee too, actually. So just wait a second. Shouldn't be more than a minute. Okay, so welcome and thank you so much for being here. Let me sit on something. Let's get comfortable and let's be transparent. Accountability. Accountability is one of those things that I'm really, really big on. It's something that I grew up learning to take responsibility for my actions when I was wrong. I mean, I'm one of 3 girls, and if you had asked me to speak about my journey a year ago, a year and a half ago, I would have looked at you like you were crazy because I was still processing it. And I have struggled with, I don't really like to use the word struggle, but my life has been a journey of struggle. You would not notice that on the outside, but internally, I am someone that has dealt with, I consider myself ADHD, being on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, and ADHD, which is diagnosed. Um, I have a really difficult time with like rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, where I used to, not so much anymore. I've worked through it in yoga. And the reason that this channel came about and the reason that I started Sunsa Yoga, which means sun yoga in Croatian, Sunsa is sun. That's my nationality. My parents are from there, and I have family there. Is because yoga was something that profoundly impacted my life during a really difficult time and transition period in my mid 20s, right around the pandemic. It was 2021, 2022 when I started to lean into the practice and lean on it on a daily basis. Um, I am someone that tends to practice 4 to 5 days a week. I don't always practice every day, but even the days that I don't practice every day, I still have a little bit of movement, like, arm stretches or whatever. So the business came about in an effort to pivot and try a new avenue of work. Previously, my first job is very commendable and it's societally seen as a good job. I started out in finance and I was quite good at it. I was there for a year, my first job out of college, and I recognized that, you know, I was one of only two women that were new hires in an office of 45 people, most of which were men, and the only other 3 or 4 women were two were assistants to top representatives, and then two were top representatives and married to another advisor. And then there was one woman that was um, a managing director, and they were there for so many years, right? Anyway, I left that job because it felt inauthentic to who I was, and it felt stressful, and it felt like I was masking, and I just burnt out. I succeeded my 9-month goal within 6 months. I stayed for about a year after, but I mentally had checked out after about maybe 7 months, right? Then I had started to work at a spicy dance club. I started out, I was bartending and waitressing, and then I danced, which is, for those of you who know, in NYC. And this was 2019. So I had auditioned the last month of 2018, and then I started working in 2019. This was during a really tumultuous financial period as a 24-year-old girl navigating New York. And I really didn't see, not that I didn't see another choice, but I was kind of introduced to this idea months prior. And I kind of like knew a couple of people that were in that work, um, but I was too nervous and scared to ever jump, into it. And I had walked in with a girl that I knew who had a couple of years experience, and my like heart was like pretty much racing. I mean, I was so nervous. I don't even, it was like a fever dream, like the whole like audition process and all that. Anyway, got hired, right? And overall, the year was a good year. It was a fun year. 2019 was a great year of self-discovery. It was just everything happened all at once. Like I went from having very little and a lot of like stressors in life to just being able to take care of my bills and myself with ease. It was the first time I had gotten an apartment on my own with my own name without needing anyone's help for approval purposes. And I felt like I was really, doing something right, or I was on the right track, even though technically I would never have shared at that time with anyone close to me what I had been doing for work because it's so stigmatized, right? But now after the pandemic, you have like everything is just in your face. Like it's just normal to see or to know of someone that has an OnlyFans. It's like not a big deal. It's just so everything has gotten to a point where it's so normalized. But back then, even like just what, 6 years ago, I feel like I'm so old saying it really was kind of like, shh, you don't want to say that, or someone's going to look at you kind of sideways, right? And there was like, when I first started the channel, I really thought about talking about this. And one thing led to the next, and my brain just shut off and it would not allow me to speak on this. It was mainly the throat chakra. It was closed off because I was just so, what if a family member sees this video, or what if someone tells my parents, or just they get into some talk about this. And I would never want to, like, bring something negative onto my family. My have some relatives that have high blood pressure, so I don't want to cause stress for anyone. So I've always been one to really take on the needs of others before ever looking at my own needs. And then through yoga and through starting Sunsa Yoga, I recognized that the club was a place of people pleasing, putting on a happy face and smiling when you're feeling like you just want to scream, or you're stressed and you just don't feel like it. And it would pay off, right? Because there was a high ratio of, you know, payout for that type of industry. It doesn't matter what club you work in any big city, you go to Vegas, you are going to get a lot of tips, even if you're just a regular bartender at a regular, bar. So, anyway, after I started this business, I had gotten two clients pretty easily and quickly because I was at the gym, which was the Equinox, very often, and I was training there like 4 days a week. So I started out really with training and strength training and machines, pushing myself, to then asking myself what is sustainable um, long term, right? And yoga, Pilates are two really sustainable practices and exercises that we can do until we're 80, 100 years old. So I really was drawn to it for not just its, you know, mental health benefits and the physique, but because it was a nicer way of speaking to yourself rather than saying that if I miss the gym today, I'll have to go twice as hard tomorrow, right? So it was more compassionate, and you got to just be a little bit kinder to yourself, which I so desperately needed during the pandemic. Um, anyway, so you see on the channel here, I pretty much, there's a lot of videos that I wear like very little. And in yoga, it's kind of like swimming. They say that the less clothes you have on, the easier it is for the movements. You don't feel like there's so much in your way. And yes, that is true. However, there are, relatively speaking, depending on who's watching, you do want to be mindful. However, I've always kind of considered myself more so an exhibitionist in a little bit of a sense, because I liked toying around with bathing suits when I was little. I just loved like summer clothing. So I just prefer less clothes if possible, warmer climates. And I never really had issues with my body because even when I was little, I was in dancing school and I just was always moving around and just all over the place. And I just like these cute little outfits. It like is, I think it's called like dopamine dressing, or like sensory stimulation. Um, yeah, so if you know, you know. So anyway, let's finally get into it. After I left the club and after the pandemic, and I had started to get settled into my business, I faced a lot of stress and a lot of backlash from a couple of the men that I had seen outside of the club. And this, be it if you're ADHD, you know how sensory and like emotionally you feel things. So it becomes difficult to focus on anything else when you feel a heightened sense of stress or guilt or fear of someone. What are they going to think? A bad person if I just break up with them, right? And I I broke up with the guys that I had something going on with in 2022 and then like early 2023. And I, to no avail, it just, I had someone that up until last year, I found out was like tracking me and like stalking me by implementing a random person into my business. I had no idea this lady came into, or she called me up and she was like, well, do you offer personal lessons? And she had been trying to get information about my personal life and then bring it back to that guy that I had been seeing years prior. And it all came to a head like early last year when she had messaged me a few things that was just completely left field. Like her personality switched in the messages. At that point, I knew she wasn't going to be coming in for lessons anymore. And it was just like a completely different person. Anyway, that happened, and I had gotten over that. That was not a big deal because it wasn't really threatening to me in any way. It was just kind of surprising and shocking in a way because I am one that is very direct and I expect for others to be direct with me because I am to a fault, like too understanding and reasonable, whereas not everyone is that way and they take their pride and ego and let it consume them because fear of rejection, I guess. I mean, we all have fear of rejection to some extent, but I guess that's on another level. So that happened. And then I had someone else up until like my heart is beating so fast because it's hard to talk about these things and do it publicly. But I am someone that has practiced taking radical accountability and acceptance for myself and who I am and where I come from and the choices that I make. And I really do expect those in close proximity to me to exercise those same beliefs. And if they don't, then I feel that I cannot trust either a client, a friend, a romantic partner. And it leads me to be distrustful of someone that isn't so forward with their thoughts. Anyway, there was in early 2023, I had called it quits with the other guy, and he just kept messaging me, and then he wanted to start coming in to do stretching and any which way to find some form of, I don't even know the words, like relation to me. And at first I was like, okay, maybe like, you can remain friends with someone. That's fine. Normally, me, I don't remain friends with any single one of my exes because if there was something intimate and there was much more shared between us, there is no true way that you can really remain friends. Because if you are friends with someone, I always say you don't, you can't introduce a friend to me and then say that you also were with them in that. on that level. That's not a friend to me. That's much more than a friend. And a lot of people will argue and say, "Oh, it's not a big deal." For me, it's a huge deal. If I was ever intimately involved with someone, I can never look at them again as just like a friend. My brain cannot process them because my emotions are so mixed up with all the other things that happened. So anyway, yeah, this person just would consistently harass me and send messages to my email, to my phone, and just wouldn't stop. And just anything to get me to reply, the most crazy accusatory things, and the level of stress that I would get reading those messages in order to for him to get some sort of reply or reaction made me realize something is seriously wrong with that individual. So, I mean, all the while, it didn't seem to be the case prior to me just cutting ties, but yeah, it was pretty bad, and it's still pretty bad to this day. Um, some people, which I have learned and recognized because I have studied psychology and I understand why I feel the way that I feel, I also expect others to self reflect and seek some form of therapy rather than just dumping all their emotions onto the closest person that they care about or love. That's not love. Love is not just completely unloading how you feel onto someone and expecting them to take it. That's not at any by any means love. And if you are in a relationship with someone that is consistently gaslighting you and telling you, "Oh, you have all these issues. I know that I'm messed up, but you're messed up too." That's not an apology. That's blaming you. If someone consistently says, "Oh, you did XYZ, you should feel guilty for that," or if they're trying to make you feel obligated to meet up with them or fearful by, like, sending things to your home and your apartment or just dropping by unannounced. These are all tactics that narcissists use, and they are used to instill some form of fear. And when you step away from that relationship and realize that that person is the problem, you free yourself from a dynamic that is unhealthy for not just you, for them too, because they will continue this loop, which I call insanity. Like, it's insane to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Something has to change. The cycle needs to be broken. Otherwise, if you don't break the loop, the cycle will continue. And if you feel in danger or you feel some way, shape, or form not safe next to someone, or that you cannot trust who that person is after so long of actually thinking that you knew who they were, it's up to you to then discern who gets to stay in your life, who gets to go, and who deserves a conversation and who doesn't. And the thing is, during the time that I worked in the club, the majority of men that would walk into the place would have some form of complex B personality disorder, which encompasses histrionic, borderline, and narcissism. And narcissism is one of those things that is really tricky because they also possess psychopathic and sociopathic traits because they have or lack the ability to empathize with anyone. They can perform empathy, but they don't necessarily understand how you feel. They can say, "Oh, I get how you're feeling," but then turn it back on themselves and be like, "Why did you do this to me?" So they don't get how you're feeling. And oftentimes you'll have relationships like this where you explain yourself to someone constantly. You constantly find yourself in this situation where you keep on trying to create clarity and some form of resonance and relatability within the relationship. And you'll consistently be met with, yes, I understand, but, and then it's all about them. So, if someone does possess a complex B personality disorder or has psychopathic or sociopathic traits, they do not understand you. Just know that person does not understand you. They will say they understand you, but they do not. And they will always turn every single situation on its head, distract you, confuse you, deflect away from the actual issue. And you will consistently be met with this idea that everything is on you and it's your fault. And it's not. The only thing that is, or maybe your fault, is if you stay with someone like that, because that is emotional abuse. Abuse. I don't know if I can use that on YouTube. And sorry, my dog. Um, so showing up on here has been exceptionally difficult because these people will hoover you and just look through fake accounts at every new post that you have and try to get in touch with you anyway you can they can and try to throw you off balance. And when you're a person, it takes a very, very strong person mentally to not be affected by that. And I consider myself an exceptionally strong, resilient, mental strength type of person. I have worked on that. I have tempered my anger in the past, and I am extremely self aware to the point where I know now through my practice of yoga who and what is the issue in my life. And once I recognize the cause, the root cause of it, I can have that conversation and either keep people around or remove them for my own, not just mental health, because confirmation honk, if your mental health is suffering, let me tell you, your body will begin to show signs of suffering in one way, shape, form, or another. And it will show up with your hormones imbalanced. It will show up with autoimmune diseases such as arthritis, Hashimoto's. There's so many that I've worked with people. There what was the other one that I worked with someone a year ago that had irritable bowel syndrome, which is IBS, and all of these things after further research, it is a 100% stems from the person being unable to identify their emotions or just not being in tune with their body. And when you are able, especially as a gift and a curse, being ADHD, you can understand how you're feeling and you feel too much sometimes, right? When you have this ability to feel too much, or others will make you feel like it's too much, and then you have people in the population in the world that feel nothing, or they feel maybe guilt or embarrassment or shame which is very prevalent in complex B and narcissism. They will often feel like they're second guessing themselves. They will feel shameful. They will feel like they have to over explain themselves because of something that they're hiding and doing wrong behind your back. They will feel all sorts of embarrassment and just overall anger. And that all comes out in the form of projecting it onto the person that is closest to them. What ends up happening is a lot of times they might not even know why they're doing what they're doing, but if you spend enough time with people like this, you come to realize their actions are subliminally meant to throw you off your course, throw you off balance, and to consistently keep you codependent on them because they are codependent individuals, to consistently keep you in a state of fight or flight because your amygdala will enlarge your fight or flight, freeze or fawn response. And if you have unhealed and unprocessed trauma from your childhood, from your teens and early 20s, you will consistently remain in this, you know, sort of entanglement or enmeshment, and you'll continue to repeat these relationships with different people, but it'll just be the same person in a different body, is what happens. And once you recognize what is happening, you can break that cycle and heal, and then only decide to be in a relationship when and if you want to, and if you're ready to be able to have the time and resources and energy to focus on it. Otherwise, you have no business being in a relationship without having done the inner work, because you'll just bleed onto everyone near you and blame them for the way that you're feeling. But it is not another person's job to help you or anyone manage their emotions. It is not your job to help your partner, significant other, friends, family, whoever it is. It is not your job to help another adult person manage their emotions. If a person does not have the ability to self regulate and manage their emotions, they will create chaos in your life. And it can be so pervasive when dealing with a covert narcissist or psychopath or sociopath. And the thing is, a lot of these CEOs and multi-millionaire, billionaire investors and founders, angel investors, finance people possess some form of narcissism, borderline histrionic psychopathy, or sociopathy. Sociopathy. That it's just a fact. The reason is because these people can bulldoze over any and every situation, keeping their hands clean without ever really feeling the emotions of others or who and what is in their way. They don't really care how you feel. They will do what they need to do in order to get where they need to go. So, meaning they will step on who they have to step on in order to attain the success that they deem is of sufficiency to them. But people like this, and that I have dealt with, it is a never ending and losing battle when in relationship with them, because it is a bottomless pit of never being enough. And you will never be enough for them. They will need to have tens of 10 sources of supply or girlfriend, boyfriends, whatever. It is just impossible to please someone like that. And you might have a boss like this. I mean, the amount of self-work and healing that I've undergone and done, cognitive behavioral therapy, is just it, it for being in places and spaces for years of consistently feeling as though you're not enough, or consistently feeling that the way that you're showing up is just not satisfactory, it leaves a really brutal scar and mark mentally. And it is exhausting and draining, and it's not easy to overcome. And many people do not overcome it, unfortunately. A lot of times, girls that work in that industry, they deal with a lot, not just emotionally and mentally. It's a lot, and the world definitely needs more empathy and self-awareness from men, because men historically have been socialized to just, you know, they've been socialized to not have self-awareness, to suppress their emotions. And what ends up happening is that when a boy grows into teenager and then a man, these men, a lot of them, they don't know how to deal with their emotions, and they don't even know how they feel. When asked, like, how do you feel, or what's going on? Like, if you're truly trying to understand, to help, oftentimes it's not really going to make a difference, because either one, they don't really care to share with you, or they are not tapped into their emotions, so they'll suppress them. And anyone that knows someone like this, they will often, it bleeds onto their relationships, onto their close ones. And what ends up happening is that you stop asking and you start suppressing your emotions, because you're not in a partnership where you can healthily relate to one another. And if you bring up your emotions and point out issues, you will be told that you're the problem. And if you can't keep up with the demands of, for example, a relationship while growing a business, that is completely normal. Certain men or people will just be like, well, why can't you do both? And it's like, you can't. You can't do both. You actually can't. And you're actually just trying to distract me from my purpose. And the thing is, when you figure out and find something that you are passionate about, and you are a purpose driven woman, a lot of times you will be faced with just resistance, not just from men or potential partners, relationships. You will be faced with resistance throughout society. Everywhere, people are going to try to knock you down a peg. And it's worse when you actually have knowledge in a certain area and you can teach people and you know more about something than someone else. And it's even worse when you actually are attractive. God forbid that you're attractive as a woman, you're not, you know, you're not you're attractive, you're educated, you're not uneducated, and you are driven, God forbid, right? There is so much that as women we face, and it's not woe is me. It is the reality of the experience. Being in your 20s and 30s, I'll be 32 next week. It is the reality that the world is not kind to you when you have something going for you, because the world will see your light way sooner than you can even see it within yourself. And the world will look to extract and take from you, from your time, efforts, your attention, your energy, your resources at every turn if you do not stand up for yourself and if you do not have solid, foolproof boundaries, rock solid, because there will be bosses, parents, people, men, women that will do whatever they can do to just see how far they can push you until you break, is really what it is. People will push you to no end if they suspect that you have something within you that they want and or might be envious or jealous of. And it could just be a personality trait because they want something that you have. So being in proximity to you, they feel that it will offer them what they're looking for, or that thing that they wish they had that you possess or portray or just innately have within. And when they see that, oh, proximity, being close to you, doesn't yield the results that they were looking for just by being next to you, they will try whatever they can to just bring you down. Because ultimately, people like this are very insecure. They might portray themselves to be understanding and kind, but mainly they are nice, surface level, and they do the actions that maybe show to the world that, oh, these actions are going to make it look like I'm a good person. They'll check off all the boxes, but there will always be something that you find is missing. And you will not be able to point your finger or just figure out what that thing is until one day you recognize, wow, it's it's a process of grief, because when you go through finding someone's true character and nature after being in relation to them for a period of time, and then you see a complete about face and you voice that. This is often met with silence, resistance, outbursts that never end, harassment. And at that point, it's up to you to decide when and if you want to speak on it, have a conversation or not, or just completely cut ties and let that person out of your life. And even if you do that, it doesn't mean that it's going to be smooth sailing from there, because I've dealt with a lot of difficult moments throughout the growth of this channel. And I've fought really hard to maintain some level of consistency. And it's been very difficult because I haven't had a break and I haven't had a chance to rest. And it is really hard. Throughout this channel, I still have a lot of great ideas and hopes and dreams for it, and I will continue those. Protecting your mental health and your peace, man or woman, is and will be and should be across the board your first and foremost priority. When your mental health is deteriorating and you can pinpoint who and what is doing that, it is time for you to create distance and stand up for yourself. And just, if you don't stand up for yourself, nobody else will. And this was something that I learned the hard way. I was a person previously that would give chance after chance, that would be the listening ear, that would bend over backwards to understand someone else's point of view. However, what I have come to realize is that few people, unless they're on the autism spectrum or have ADHD or are some form of neurodivergence, few people in this world actually try or even have the ability to understand what someone else may be going through if they haven't gone through it themselves, which means that very few people in this world possess the ability to have empathy. Empathy is this word that's thrown around that people say empathize, we need more empathy. But after studying neuroscience and figuring out why I could not get through to certain individuals, no matter how much I tried, you realize that the way that you think is completely individual and personal to you and your life experience. It does not translate at all to the way another person thinks. Each person has their own way of thinking, and you will never know what they are thinking unless they're on the spectrum and you're really close with them and you actually have that relationship. You will never know what someone is truly thinking about you, the world, anything without them telling that to you or sharing that with you. Because if you don't have that relationship with someone, that back and forth of sharing the way that you feel, those intimate moments of what makes you you and why you are the way that you are, that relationship is just never going to last. It is an unstable, shaky, built on a crumbling foundation that is just meant for failure. Few people really can empathize, and it's very difficult. It's like almost like a grief. It's like I have been going through this sense of grief, in a sense, for individuals who I thought I knew and have come to terms with the fact that maybe they are not who I thought they were, because maybe they're just saying and doing things in front of my face, but they actually think differently behind my back. And I found this to be true with the harassment that I faced over the past 2 years, I guess 3 years now, and the never ending desire to remain in my life with a couple of people that I have ended things with 3, 4 years ago. All this to say, after this past week, I have made some changes in my life and I've been honest about the way that I feel, because you can't hide your feelings. They really have to surface and come up. You need to be honest with yourself. I need to be honest with you guys. You need to be honest in order to live a coherent and aligned life. And it's been difficult, but it's been helpful. And I will always say that self awareness and having the ability to self reflect and ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Who am I hurting in the process? Why am I remaining in this place, in this job, in this relationship? Who is benefiting from that? Having the ability to ask yourself these questions will ultimately be what makes or breaks your life trajectory as you move forward. Because without the ability to self reflect, you will be stuck, stagnant, complacent, emotionally inept, and just at the level of a second grader if you can't, rationalize why or you're doing what you're doing, or staying in relation to XYZ, or being in this club, or whatever the case, book club, friend group, right? You'll just be on autopilot. And I am not someone that has ever lived on autopilot. I've always questioned myself, questioned my surroundings. I've always been very aware, and I can no longer do surface level relationships. I need to know who I'm dealing with by asking deep questions. And if those questions cannot be answered, then I know who I'm dealing with. And if I remain in contact with certain people, I know that that will only cause me harm mentally and physically. So, and even with work, like I wasn't able to consistently upload on the channel, and I take the channel seriously as I take the work and the lessons. This has been a really tough thing to speak on. I hope that you can hear me. I hope I didn't turn it off. And we'll get the vinyasa morning yoga flow started now. But I really felt that I owed it to you all, the Teensters community, after so many bouts of I'll be back and then I leave again, I'll be back and then I leave again. And I am no longer self-abandoning who I am, and I'm making this video to hold myself accountable in an effort to please others or please someone just because they're spewing hate my way as though I'm not a good person when I know deep down that I am a great person. I am a loyal to no end person. I am honest and resilient. I am grounded and balanced, but it's just very difficult in today's day and age to meet a counterpart, or it's not even something that I'm looking for. It's just the fact that it's very difficult to find a match or to even think about that. But I'm not thinking about that right now. I'm just thinking about, the channel and you all and just doing our best to move forward and, let this go and just know that saying this out loud is what makes it real, and it can be scary and it can be hard, but if you're going through something similar and if you have been in relationship to someone that might be a covert, overt narcissist or something of the sort, just know that I have had my fair share and I've gotten to a point, and you will too, journaling and distance, and it's all healing. Yoga is great. You just exercise your body and let things move through you and flow through you. You will get through it. You just need to be really kind and compassionate with yourself because you were conditioned to be in a state of constantly apologizing for not being able to keep up or show up when you had so many other things going on. And when you are an adult and you are, you know, you have a business, or some of us might have kids, or some of us have pets, relationships are not a priority unless you are working toward the intentionality of bringing that relationship into a marriage. And if someone is pestering you and harassing you to be in relation to them and they're already married, that just proves to you that that person has questionable values and morals and is not someone that aligns with you. And if that person is maybe widowed or separated or divorced and they are seeing another person and they're seeing you, it just speaks to their character. And I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. However, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And the thing is, karma is real. Be intentional, be self aware, and make decisions that you would be proud of. The way that I lead my life is I make decisions as if someone is always watching, or someone knows, or someone is always above and looking down. Whereas even if I ever told a white lie, nothing that I really have done in my life is at a point where it would have really harmed or made someone question their reality or doubt themselves if they were in relationship to me. I've always been transparent and I intend to stay that way, and I will not allow any relationship to get in my way again. I will use my discernment, as I hope that you all do as well, and be kind to yourself. Give yourself time and grace to heal. It is a process, it's not linear. And I know it's getting long, but really, it's you come first. And if someone really cares for you and is considerate of you and your feelings, they will prove that with the way that they show up. And if they're just showing up selfishly, like, let me bring you the flowers, let me bring you this, that, and what if you don't want to be bothered? They're just doing it for themselves. That you will know these things. It's just, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, right? People's actions, some of them are, they just come, they always come with a selfish I'll do this to see you, or I'll do this to whatever, or we'll do this right after. And it's like, what if you don't want to do anything? You just want to hang out. And a lot of people, they can't just be in their own body and hang out and be on their own. But that's on them, and it's not up to you to help anyone manage their own stuff. All right. So thanks for being here. Thanks for joining. Ugh. Anyway, I'll get to the yoga now. And thanks for being here. I love you guys.